everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations with myself, Simon. Today everyone, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my thoughts on spiritual bypass and maybe just giving some insight regarding how I perceive this idea to work within our lives, maybe highlighting some of the dangers that are associated with this experience, and maybe just giving some insight into how to actually find yourself not basically practicing this information. One of the reasons why I'm actually sharing this with you today is because I was kind of inspired, unfortunately, through a loss that has just recently taken place today. And so in that space of remembering my own soul's journey of spiritual bypass, I'd like to offer this perspective to anybody that has had somebody that they've recently lost, maybe even because of Saturn in Scorpio, or if you in some way, shape or form, unfortunately, are going to be experiencing that in some way, to really be able to access a deeper spiritual perspective regarding what actually transpires in this process for us. Okay, well, so what is spiritual bypass? From the point of view that I interact with it, spiritual bypass is taking an experience that happens in our lives and basically detaching from the experience itself and then using higher knowledge, as it were, to rationalize through the mental process the wisdom that is supposed to come out of the experience as well. So it's basically taking, if you had to understand the nature of creation being divine masculine and divine feminine, then divine feminine would be the archetype of the water trinity and the earth trinity. So it would be the feminine, the nurture, the emotional body, and so on. Whereas the masculine would be the expansive, this is the exploration of consciousness, this would be higher mind, and so on. So when we go through experiences in our lives that are that deeply shock our emotional body, like for instance the loss of a parent, the loss of, in my particular case, parent's sister, we generally then get met with quite a lot of emotion that comes up for us, and we can interact with this where we reject the feelings that we are having within ourselves and applying a higher knowledge to the process, going, it's time, this happened, and basically detaching from the emotion and allowing us to be present with just the knowledge of the experience, just the higher sort of perspective, just taking the higher perspective, rationalizing it through the mental processes, understanding everything through the mental and the mind, but not really connecting to the emotional part of the body, to the actual feelings of it, and so on. So it's like taking consciousness and projecting it outwardly versus really inwardly understanding the experience itself and really connecting to that, so that you almost in some way, shape or form transform yourself through the experience. It gets lost through spiritual bypass. So things that I could sort of use to highlight this idea, this experience actually, would be my own soul's journey in past lives, where, for instance, the acquisition of knowledge, okay, just like to know everything, to search for knowledge, to allow for hyperdimensional knowledge to be present, and then not to live it. And so therefore we have knowledge but not wisdom, because we are basically taking the masculine energy and we're rejecting the feminine energy, so that we then through that process just live it through the mental facilities. We don't actually have the physical cellular memory that gets created when we anchor it into the feminine archetype. Okay, so it's the rejection of the emotional and body and the emotions. So it's actually evolving through the emotional body. And for anybody that really needs some deep grounded understanding about what spiritual incarnation is about, it is the nature of evolving through the emotional body, through deep internal reflection, self-analysis, and internal relationship to oneself. And the expansion of consciousness emerges through the masculine as we understand that deep connection to our souls. Okay, so what we do in terms of understanding a spiritual journey, or understanding the nature of what it means to be alive. It means to recognize your stuff, recognize your wounds, recognize your traumas, etc., that you've carried with yourself, and seek to heal yourself through the pain. So it's actually through pain that you understand the nature of creation in that way, because it's the woundedness that you carry with you, and you heal the duality that exists within yourself, the separateness. So an example by this is actually accepting the wounding, or accepting the loss, or accepting the pain that has existed, and then through that acceptance you then deal or allow for yourself to experience it, like viscerally. You actually experience the trauma, you experience that sense of emotion, and it becomes a part of the physical body. It gets felt in the feminine archetype, right, the nervous system. So what happens in this particular instance with regards to spiritual bypass is it's like just connecting to the highest meaning that's possible and not allowing the emotions to be present with the experience. It's complete suppression of it. We all know, unfortunately, through the expansion of the masculine energy under patriarchy, that a lot of the emotional body has been suppressed, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of men carry with them unresolved anger, because deep down inside of them they actually carry within them a rejection of their own inner identity, their own inner feminine archetype. And so what happens here is that we have allowed ourselves to technologically advance so fast that we've lost the essential meaning behind what the spiritual incarnation is about. So spiritual bypass, and I can use my own example for you guys in this particular discussion, is so I was 22, so around about 10 years ago, my dad passed away. And because of the trauma and the experience of the emotions being so intense for myself, and not actually having much support around me to understand what it means to process these emotions, I basically took the higher perspective on the process, and was like, I disconnected from the emotions and the emotional body and said, look, yeah, these were even the words I'd said, that anybody that lives outside their allocated time is going to change the timelines that human beings that create. So they need to pass on that point in time, and this was his time, unfortunately, and that rippled effect the nature of my own story, and so on and so forth. And a part of that process was never actually feeling the pain that I might carry with me regarding that loss. Never actually tapped into it, never actually felt what existed within that. Now, as I've gone through my own Saturn return, and also, starting raising vibrations, I had to confront all of that stuff. This was what my Saturn in Scorpio transfer was about. And I had to release a lot of that emotion that had been basically stored away, to go, not dealing with it right now. I'm going to apply a higher dimensional state of awareness to that process, and I'm never really going to feel what it feels like to actually know what it means to lose in that way. Now, I'm not saying that that was entirely the case, because I did feel that way. It was just that I didn't actually allow for the emotions to be present with myself and honor them within myself, and allow for those feelings to then motivate me in a direction that would give me deeper understanding about that story. It was only later on in my life that I actually allow for that to be present with me. Now, the purpose that I'm sharing with you right now is that, when we lose somebody, or something happens to us in a way that always creates sadness or pain, we can always easily go to a thought process or a philosophy that allows us to almost cover the wound, and not allow us to access what is really beneath that story for us. And I think that it's important for us to actually allow ourselves, when loss occurs, to connect to that emotion, because on one level it actually allows you to develop your own sense of empathy, especially when, as you go forward in life, and you might encounter somebody that goes and has somebody that's they've lost, or they're going through a difficult time. You can actually feel into your own emotional state, and then offer that information, or support and guidance, whatever it might be, to other people. An example that I could use again was raising vibrations creation, was through my own feeling within, like, okay, this ascension process is pretty tough, and it must be really difficult for a lot of souls out there that don't feel connected to the Earth's grid in the way that you need to be when you awaken. And so therefore, let's create a channel, and let's say, hey guys, by the way, you're not actually that alone, and there are other people out there, and you can feel connected, which of course is one of the reasons why it's been such a successful energy that has been created, because there are other people out there that are feeling that way. So you can see what I mean by tapping into my own pain and then acting upon that and creating something and going, hey, look, anybody out there that's going through the same stuff, there's a space for you to feel like you're okay. You see the point? So again, evolving through the emotional body is the essential core archetype when it comes down to spiritual incarnation. And if you're still rejecting that part of yourself in ways where maybe not allowing yourself enough acceptance of maybe the traumas that you have, the inner judgments you might have, the feelings of lack that exist within you, then that is a part of spiritual bypass, because you're allowing yourself to be distracted by the existential world and the myriad of things that keep us not paying attention to this vehicle. And you just get stuck there, and you don't actually recognize what you carry with you. I mean, this is one of the major reasons why we carry with us diseases and so on, because we don't process that emotion. So this idea of spiritual bypass, and unfortunately, there are certain, especially in what would be coined the new age movement, there's so much spiritual bypass there, because it's about ascending to states of consciousnesses and allowing your awareness to be still connected to something existentially. So even though we don't actually have like a savior, for instance, in the ways like Jesus and how it's portrayed through religion, we still have the externalizing of your consciousness and the necessity to bypass the pain, and so everything is love and light. And this is very dangerous, because the moment that you do that, you don't connect to this vehicle over here. And I promise you right now that if there was any insight that I could honestly offer anybody, that you could walk away from this video and this whole entire channel, is recognize that the physical body is a representation of your multidimensional self. And if you are to keep your consciousness in this body, and in terms of not trapped, but in this body, and focus on the inner work that is associated with it, and understand it as a instrument for spiritual evolution, then you have honestly got the right path, and you're going in the right direction, because it's this thing that you need to preserve. It's this body that keeps you here alive, breathing. So if you're going to be paying attention to, exploring consciousness regarding whatever, Sirius star systems or aliens and Palladians and all that type of stuff, fantastic, wonderful. But if you're so focused on that stuff and you're not resolving your own inner traumas and your own inner feelings of separation and dualities and stuff, you're not actually going to get anywhere. You're still going to carry that stuff with you. And that's why it becomes such a very difficult task in terms of walking a spiritual path in that way, because it's so much about really doing the confronting of emotional limitations that might exist within you, old patterns, old identity structures that no longer facilitate or support you, and really dissolving them through self-acceptance and love and a sense of allowance. These are key words that I could really offer in this sense. And to be quite honest, as I sit here and talk to you about this, the reason why I'm sharing it with you is because I know that this is my own soul's journey. I know that this is the very thing within my own soul that it has not been doing in prior lives. And so therefore it sits here and it goes, this is what I need to evolve through. This is what I need to look at. This is what I need to apply, and it's kind of interesting, because I do sit in the situation and I share with you all my knowledge in this way. And yet the thing that keeps me anchored in doing this is the family that I have, is the emotional nurturance that is obviously always needing my constant attention at this stage, where it's grounding me into the physical, so that I don't kind of just allow my curiosity of the nature of the universe to fly out into many different dimensions, which it will do. I mean, if you gave me half a time, I'd be so far into deep space, it would be unbelievable. It needs to come back, and it needs to be brought into the physical in order for it to be lived through. It's the nervous system itself that actually reveals to you the nature of what the experience was like. So you can have all the wisdom in the world, and I mean knowledge in the world, but if you do not have a balanced trinity, which is the masculine energy of exploration of consciousness and the feminine energy of the grounded nervous system, you will not have the third, which is wisdom, which is the inner child, the Christ consciousness. So it's direct experience of things, you know. So it's really, really interesting and important that when you do go through periods of your life that are, where loss occurs, or, like that, to not bypass the experience by allowing some higher dimensional state of awareness to be superimposing it. And this is something that really, really is going to take the world by storm at this point in time, where we're focusing so much on the existential world about creating and forming and interacting with ether in that way, that we forget the one most important thing, which is this journey from the bottom of the spine up to the top. And if you're not understanding your inner space, if you're not understanding your own inner world and how that operates, then the mechanic that is existing with inside of yourself, and the vehicle that the mechanic is supposed to in some way, shape, or form service when it goes through its situations, that connection's not there. You're basically just going in a time loop like this, and your consciousness is trapped in the outside world. So yeah. All right, guys, thanks very much for listening to what I have to say today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and it gave you some deep thoughts regarding what this is about. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share this with everybody you think that will enjoy this type of content. If you are not aware of our membership program, please check out the description below. There will be a link to that part of our website. And just briefly, what it is every single new and full moon, there is a 45-minute video just talking about the nature of the astrology there, and types of archetypes that you can work with for the month. That it's basically like a spiritual gym. And if you go through the tiers, there's a free solo reading that you can get as well, and also the Pluto books or Pluto videos that I've created for everybody that you can access. All right, fantastic, everyone. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.